Hey, beautiful people. How is everybody doing? I'm going to open the space. I'm going to sort of get my cards together and our crystals as well. Get the space nice and set for us, guys, whilst you guys get into the room, because your girl was kind of like getting into the room herself. Oh, y'all. Okay. How has... Hey, beautiful people. Let me get the chat nice ready. How's the weather been for you guys? And I don't mean the actual weather, I mean the weather. The emotional tides, the mental tides. How has life been lifing for you guys? The come down of the Mercury retrograde's been interesting because I think we're kind of like 3 days in now, and it's kind of like, okay, anything that wasn't kind of wrapped up during that period is definitely getting an opportunity to kind of I guess be completely purged through. So, sorry, I'm just checking that. There's a lot of deck for this type of reading. There's quite a few decks. So I'm just checking to make sure that I'm on point with all the decks that is needed for the job. Okay. Damn. There's like, I used like 6 decks for this whole process. That's intense, y'all. Hashtag whatever to all to know and grow. Oh my days, and that's my own space. But hey, you know when you're kind of like waking up to realization, I've been more on these days. I think I've been a little bit in like kind of a sleep mode before, where I'm kind of semi-present but not quite there at the same time as well. So it's definitely interesting, y'all. I'm gonna get the room started. Let me just clear the deck before we get into it. All the decks, I'm gonna clear those and let you guys get into the room as well. I was kind of like getting myself nice and ready for you guys coming into the room so that I can come down out of the space from everything else, because I'm telling you, life is busy at the minute, y'all. Busy. The blessings are trickling in. We love that. Okay. Always. That is always a plus. But, and however, there is a lot of intensity along right with it. There's a lot of juggling. I'm like, oh my god. I've never been so happy for my Virgo rising, because it's like really helping to kind of like execute the organizations of it all. The organizing is kind of like the class that I'm in at the minute. I don't know about you guys, but that's a class that I'm really trying to get better. See, I'm trying to get in here more often and do stuff. So, oh god, it echoes in here as well, right? I don't know. Maybe I need to get some soundproofing on my walls. Actually, maybe that's what would help Martin next door as well, because I can barely. I feel so cautious when I have to even raise my voice. We're going to go into the goodie bag, y'all, and go and check and see about what crystals we actually have for tonight's session, y'all. We're going to see what comes up for us, because there's always some interesting stuff. Okay, what have we got? Okay. We've got an agate, a blue agate. We're going to go with that one. Sorry. We've got a citrine as well, I think. Yeah, I think it's a citrine as well. And then, sorry, we're going to go in and close it out with a black obsidian. Interesting. Ooh, sorry. Because I don't even pick the crystals as well. The guides, like, I was excited when they're like, oh, and we're gonna. Oh, hiya, priceless. I'm not doing free readings tonight. That's Friday night sessions. Oh, hi guys. Hi, Nadira. Oh, I am good, girl. I am getting us nice and ready for this Taurus new moon on Friday, Mama. How are you doing? uh, Free readings, priceless is on Friday this week. I'm going to put the memo out tomorrow. So get into the space nice and early so you can get onto the list. Unfortunately, tonight, but fortunately for us, tonight's reading is a pick a crystal reading. So you can hang around. We're going to do like a general sort of kind of like personal. You can see how it applies to you for the Taurus new moon that's coming. We've got a lot of festivities coming with it. I'm great. This is Aaliyah. I changed my name, my screen name. Oh, hey, Aaliyah. I was thinking about you. I was sending you some good energy earlier this week as well. I definitely had you on my prayer list as well. So I hope you've been getting those good vibes, girl. That part. But yes, this Taurus new moon, guys, they said to me, oh, sorry, I'm excited, right? Because I come into the space because usually I'm just going at the minute because life is just lifing me at the minute. Oh, that's what's up. Because I know there was like, I think it was yesterday when I woke up in the morning. I think they were sort of like reporting back in because we share like a collective hard drive, but you have to be open to people. It takes empathy to get into that room, basically. And I was like in the room in the morning getting like my assignments for the day, and I was sensing that. Life is just kind of like acceptance. There's sort of like a process at the minute. And I know that, like, yeah, grieving's such an interesting thing. And I know that you're navigating through a bit of a contrast with the process and everything as well. And then outside of that, life is lifing at the minute as well. And then I was thinking, oh, did her cycle come? Girl, I can't lie. I was like, oh, snap. I hope it did. But that's for Friday sessions. We're going to dive into the space, right? And get into all of this good stuff because I'm like, wow. Oh, damn, girl. I was like asking, I was like, so what you think? I was even trying to sort of like tune into the space as well to get like more of an indication about what may be going on there actually. But tune in tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Friday. Oh, girl, I'm telling you, it's been real. I am going to continue to sort of like pray on the space because I was asking about what's going on in that space there as well because I was like, okay, um, yeah, just we'll tune in on Friday. No, they're saying okay, that's fine, thank you guys. They're like saying to me that I have to obviously just let the energy flow and don't be like too Capricorn moon, basically. Don't be too Capricorn moon and be too stern in the space and stuff. But for the most part, I was starting to ask questions, I feel like, about um, the transitional process and what's going on with that and why that. There was lots of questions in my mind, girl. We had like a whole conversation. It was a whole team conversation about you. I'm sorry, girl. Like, no shade. It really was just one of those things that I wanted to be able to get an understanding of like what's coming because I could hear out there in the collective that there was like I wouldn't, yeah, it was like an angst. It was like a little bit of an anxiety, you know what I mean? And I'm vibrating on that frequency. So I met you in the anxiety room, girl. The week's been crazy. So I feel you with the levels of anxiety. That was kind of like the space. No, it's fine. Thanks for even thinking about me now, girl. Trust me. Like, obviously, when we go into certain like physiology, there's lots of people vibrating on those frequencies as well. Again, it's just whether or not we're willing to kind of like tune in and see who else is out there. I'm like, oh, you here too? What you here for? What's your ailment? Okay, I'm going this way. Do you want to come with me? Oh, you got stage 3 anxiety? Oh, I'm only stage 2. I don't think this is gonna be a good idea, but we're gonna work on it. It's one of those ones. No, seriously, serious stuff. Like, if only sometimes when I'm in these like spaces of reality, I say to myself, like, I can't wait for that time when we're all like actually actively in that space where that's normal, where we're sort of like openly having these like discussions about what's going on like in the collective hard drive, like subconsciously. um but yeah, you were on my mind this week. Yesterday it was, actually, you were on my assignment list. I was kind of like just navigating through the day, and they were just, I could sense you out there in my anxiety class. You're doing good, girl. Don't worry about it for the most part. Okay. Um, and the worries shall be that, because I sense that obviously that's one of the things as well that was kind of like causing some worry, understandably, because that's why I started asking questions. But yeah, I'm telling you, the Scorpio full moon. Momentum. Oh my God, it has brought so much momentum. Hello, Amber. I am good. I was just about to say how I am. I am getting better at optimizing. I'm like optimizing my lazy personality, and I'm like having to do stuff to feed that spirit that just kind of wants to do nothing. She's very lax. She doesn't really want to do anything. She's flaky. It's my Pisces tendency as well. It's kind of like a side effect. This is a part of our defect a little bit, but if you know how to work with it, it's fine. So I'm kind of like optimizing to the point where I'm kind of taking any moment that I can get to sort of like make that a chill time. I was watching my ratchet TV whilst I had a shower earlier, okay, because I'm multitasking. I was like, oh my God, look at me. I'm optimizing. Yay. It's been going good, needless to say. So, guys, we have our crystals for tonight. They've been selected. How are you doing, Amber? I have Pisces North Node, so I know you get me. You get me. Okay. But I'm working on it. Okay. I'm working on it. Thankfully, I'm on the cusp of Aquarius as well, which helps me to intellectualize all my feelings. It's good. Oh, that's good, girl. That's good. We're gonna chop it up for this Taurus new moon, because they were telling me like, yo, we need to get our ish together, because obviously this is going to prep us for like the Saturn retrograde that's coming this time next month. That's what's up, Amber. Listen, again, you get it, my love. You get it. Okay. I'm like, okay. That was interesting. That moved me. But yes, so guys, what was the first crystal that they chose? Okay, so they chose the agate, the blue agate. I don't know if you guys can see. Hold on. I'm gonna do it with my strong hand. That was too funny, but that was the blue agate. We've got black obsidian. I've got like crystal chips. I don't know if you guys can see them. We've got black obsidian, and we have citrine. I think in the order that they came out, if I can remember, it was the agate, crystal number 1. Crystal number 2 is the citrine, and crystal number 3 is the black obsidian. So that's the process. Take your picking, guys. Hey, Johnny, how you doing? Oh, hey, you always come with the chivalry. Love the charm, Johnny. Love it. Oh, I'm not doing free readings tonight, Johnny. I'm doing that on Friday night this week. I am actually doing a pick a crystal reading for the Taurus new moon, because we've got a lot coming, and the guides basically are saying we need to get our ish together. Okay. They're saying, okay, we need to prepare for the imminent Saturn retrograde that's coming. No, that's okay. I'm gonna put the memo out tomorrow for the free readings on Friday. So get into the room nice and early, Johnny. Okay, as soon as I put the memo out, trust me, it's like sharks. Okay. But you have been on my mind as well, actually, as of recent, interestingly enough. So definitely get yourself into the room tomorrow for us. Okay. Hold on, the hubby is calling, guys. I'm sorry. I have to squeeze everything in. Don't judge me, people. I'll be 2 seconds. Sorry. Sorry, y'all. Okay. It comes along with the territory. Um, Hey Farida, how are you doing, my love? Crystal number two, Amber. Interesting choice. It's definitely an interesting choice. We're actually going to be having the Saturn retrograde on the 17th of June. That's going to be in Pisces. So this is probably why you definitely need to know this. Hi, SK. Welcome to the room, my love. We're actually going to be doing a bigger crystal reading. Okay, I'm going to put the details out in the chat because my moderators aren't here. I was saying to the guys, what's happening tonight? Do you think my moderators are going to make it? What do you feel like? Anybody, feel free if you're going to stay in the room or whilst you're here to help a girl moderate. Okay, whilst my moderators sort of like get here to help me out and figure out this stuff, right? Because that's usually their forte. But luckily for me, I've been optimizing. My day job involves a lot of typing, generally speaking. Oh, yes, Aaliyah, look at that. Thank you, beautiful. Okay, so crystal number one, we have blue agate. And then you can make this look all pretty and do your good stuff with it. And then crystal number two, we have the citrine crystal. And crystal number three, we have the black obsidian. It's so interesting that this is like making a re-entrance in my life because my obsidian took my ruby away. So my ruby was actually like one of the last, other than this ring that I have, it was one of the last things that I had that my dad gave me since I was a kid, and I've been processing the grief of that. My nephew was being a 2-year-old, and yeah, what 2-year-olds do. He got rid of it, but interestingly, black obsidian sort of is what calls to me. So my crystal's crystal number three. I just knew it from when I saw it. I was like, yep, this is for me, crystal number three. I know. Generally speaking, all of the crystals actually sort of like applies to me in one way or another. I probably like experience them in different classes, which is why it's so interesting. But come on, guys, we're going to go and dive into it. We're going to start with crystal number one. We're going to timestamp on this as well. So we're going to sort of say crystal number one is starting 18 minutes in. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna I'm gonna keep a note on my notepad. Just in case my moderators don't actually make it into the room. I know that Aaliyah's going to be helping out, girl. I'm going to make you a mod. Let me just get this up and running. Sorry, there we go. Let's make you a mod. Okay, there we go. Now you're a mod. Okay. So we are going to dive into it. So we're starting off with crystal number one. The way that I read for this type of reading, obviously we're going for a message from the universe. The context of the whole process is, obviously, as I read, I'll read out the questions again. We're going to sort of start with where we are as we're navigating. Oh, God, my bad. Sorry. My bad, y'all. So let's talk a little bit about the Taurus new moon. Sorry, because they're like, girl, where are you going? Seriously, the Taurus new moon that we've got coming, the fruits of this is really towards the end of the year. And it's so beautifully done as well, with like obviously retrograde season sort of like coming into full effect to really help to propel like that quick movement and flow forward. But this is going to be interesting, right? Because this was one of the things that the guys were saying to me. So the moon, the Taurus new moon, is actually taking place for us here in the UK on Friday. So that would be Friday the 19th, and it's actually sort of going to be at 3:53 in the afternoon here. And it was interesting because the last Scorpio full moon was at 5:33. So there was a lot of play with numbers. If you guys saw the video, I had the perfect video for this actually, and I didn't think about sort of like plugging that in for you guys for like the end of this, but definitely go and check out the astrology reading that I did for like this month, the forecast for this month, because there's a lot of numerology here that's kind of like really, really asking us to be willing to change on all layers of self, on all different layers of self. There's an imminent change that's sort of like taking place. So what I would say is this sort of dynamic, the guides were saying, again, it goes back to making sure that we're completely aligned, because our energy field and our energy grid is ultimately what's manifesting the reality that we're sort of like bringing into existence, right? But it's like when we talk about like the Trinity of like mind, body, spirit connection, right? It's really one of those things that's what really determines what the energy is like. And there's other layers to it. There's like sub layers in the topics. It's so strange, but we're going to be learning, you know, like how when you go through something and you feel like you've healed from it, and then like a retrograde happens, and then you're like, oh my God, I was still working on that. Dang. Um, I'm not going to say it's kind of like one of those moments, but it's kind of like one of these opportunities. I like the way I presented that to you guys. It's one of these opportunities for us to be able to really fine tune the stuff that, you know, we say, okay, I'm gonna do it, like there's no going to do it. This is a Taurus new moon. This is the time to execute. There is going to be areas, they were saying to me as well, like this is where we're going to sort of like learn where it's necessary to be able to kind of like really be willing to sort of bend. But there's also the opportunity for us to really understand where we don't need to be sort of like folding in certain situations. And what I mean by that is like for some of us, we're sort of like holding firm on certain boundaries with ourselves. It's not even necessarily about others per se. It's almost like personal goals is really the class of this Taurus new moon season. And we really have to understand what those personal goals are and how much effort and work we're putting in towards that. So for those of us who are basically optimized to about 30%, there's an opportunity to get like up to another 20%, like very, very quickly and easily within the next 28 days moon cycle, and then sort of like build momentum from there, right? So that's what this Taurus new moon is really going to be doing for us in terms of the process of some of the things that we're manifesting and grounding sort of like in the 3D. Another thing that they were saying as well is that the planning is going to be very, very important for us. Future planning is going to be important to the process of how things actually unfold for us. And it's not just about planning, but it's also about how we execute those things yet again. What I'm trying to speak about is the fine details here. Attitude, that's going to be okay. The mirror law that is basically sort of like mirroring our attitude back to us, that is going to be hypersensitive because we're in Taurus season. So there's a little bit of rigidity. As we kind of move out of Taurus season, however, there'll be a little bit more flexibility in terms of how harsh the universe is going to hit back when we have a little bit of a stank attitude and kind of reflect that back to us in terms of the way that we're manifesting, right? So maybe save some of like the, you know, all that kind of attitude for like Gemini season, because then it's a little bit more understandable. The universe gets it, basically. That part. But yeah, now we're actually going to sort of dive into crystal number one. They said it's all about intellectual sort of thinking during this period. It's very, very important, guys. It's extremely. The mind is going to need to be able to come into a oneness with the heart, because at the minute there's been a lot of conflict between mind and heart. And the way that we delegate and speak over our experiences during this season is going to be very, very important. the actual organs that are being activated during the Taurus new moon cycle are the neck, vocal cords, throat, thyroid gland, things pretty much around the throat chakra area. Usually, when we're dealing with this type of activation, the throat chakra generally deals with esteem. So, anywhere where your self esteem may not be optimized, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to do so. That does mean that triggers are going to come to be able to highlight anywhere where the work needs to be done. So, you know what we do when we get those moments? We seize the opportunity, we get on our surfboards, and we ride that wave. Okay, because I'm telling you, like this shit during this season is really going to be taking us to the next level in preparation for 2024, because the 2024 timelines are about to start in like 2 months basically, and what we're doing now is kind of like preparing for that pretty much, right? As far as like just how time works basically. This whole linear thing is only sort of like our human experience of it, but like when we plant a seed right now, we're sort of like sowing a seed for the next 6 months, basically, and we have to nurture that seed. It's farming. But let's dive into it, guys. So officially, for real, crystal number one is at 26 minutes in, and that's not bad because you guys know how much your girl can talk. So let's get into it. Okay. Where are we, guys? As a collective, those of us who will choose crystal number one, the agate crystal, where are we internally as we navigate through the Taurus new moon? Interesting. Okay. Lack of closure in partnerships. The agate crystal is actually really good for the throat chakra, interestingly enough. So your process is going to be definitely how to navigate through the channeling of the energies of this Taurus new moon, because the throat chakra activation, it does mean that you probably have some dynamics where your self-esteem is wary in comparison to your confidence. So basically any area where your confidence is lacking, those places are going to be highlighted during this cycle for you. The Taurus new moon is going to be sort of going until the next new moon in Gemini. Let's have a little look and see when that will be actually. I think the next new moon in Gemini, the full moon, sorry, not the, yeah, no, the new moon in Gemini, because it's a full 28-day cycle for the next one. So not Gemini, Cancer. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, wow, guys. Sorry, this is interesting. This is interesting that they actually took me to this. The next new moon is actually going to be in Cancer. Because we had two Aries moons this cycle, because we had two Aries new moon, we skip a Gemini new moon. So the shadow doesn't get to plant any seed. This is very, very interesting. This is lovely. Look at the universe setting us up for like success. Should we sort of receive the challenge? But the universe is definitely setting us up for success. There's no, like the fact that we don't have a Gemini new moon, I mean, it's more sort of in the context of a Cancer new moon. The Taurus new moon's happening in the third decan of Taurus. So it's definitely like old seeds for one that are really sort of like manifesting. So things that you've been working on for like a year or so, thoughts that you've been having, especially during the retrograde climate, they're going to be sort of revisited, and you're going to have to do a little bit more nurturing and farming in that garden, you know. So you're going to be getting your hands dirty basically in a lot of different ways when it comes down to actually like some of the things that you're trying to sort of gain as far as like material possessions in the 3D. You're definitely going to be sort of setting up the process of some of the things that you have to move away from in order to move forward to, right? It's just a process of what's happening with the Taurus new moon. And this is why I was talking about knowing when you're going to have to be firm on something and knowing when you're going to have to bend, because some corners you'll have to take. You'll have to take certain corners and figure out how to go through the optimizing process. The ideal isn't the goal, okay? The ideal is a possibility, and the ideal possibility probably has a very low probability. We're dealing with universal maths here, right? So if we can shift our focus to the reality of what is and learn how to work around those variables, this climate is basically going to take us into the Cancer new moon. And the Cancer new moon is going to then allow for us to set new emotional capacity to deal with all of this stuff, because the Scorpio full moon basically said, I have no capacity for this no more. My bandwidth is full. Okay. So while we've gone through that during the Scorpio full moon, and we're continuing to move through that during this cycle, this Taurus new moon is saying, okay, let me take a minute to stabilize. That was a lot for me. First, my ego got completely shedded during the Aries full moon. I think, no, the Aries new moon, sorry. The Aries new moon solar eclipse. That's what it was. It was a solar eclipse. And then during the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse, we had the emotional capacity sort of be dissipated. And now we're kind of finding the balance. We're kind of like getting back to a place where we're feeling a little bit stable. That was a lot to deal with, mind and like heart, right? Going through a little bit of a whoa, okay, now let's get back into alignment and let's move forward, right? The retrograde Mercury did its thing for us whilst we were navigating through that Scorpio full moon as well, to make sure that we were ready to have those conversations, even if it's on demon time. That part, I'm just saying, right? And then now the Cancer new moon is basically that after we finish up this cycle, by the time we get into that, it's like, okay, now let's lay the foundation. I'm ready. Hey, we're gonna be doing bits, guys. All right, come on, for real. Let's go and get into it. Okay, right. So, where are we internally? Like, for those of us, interesting, we still got that going down at the bottom. This is definitely about partnerships, right? For the most part, you're the blue agate. You guys are dealing with partnerships. Partnerships are about to trigger your self-esteem issues, basically your emotional insecurities. It's going to go through a period. Oh, citrine. Okay, that's crystal number 2. Okay, priceless. Okay, so for you guys who've chosen the agate, partnership is really the area where you're going to be sort of like identifying your losses and maybe processing some regrets. I think there are some regrets that you have that is basically plaguing your low self-esteem, which is why you're struggling to be able to optimize in confidence, right? It's causing a little bit of indecisiveness as a result of that. I am on pile number 1. Okay, I'm still on pile number 1, mama. Don't worry, you ain't missed nothing. Thankfully for you, your girl talks a lot. But we're still here because I needed to give you guys like a little bit of context to this Taurus new moon, because they were like, look, I was going to dive straight into it. And they were like, no. Like, let's set the scene, because then what I'm about to put out here, it won't, do you see what I'm saying? The math just won't math, basically. So we're still at crystal number 1. We're starting. I don't even think I did take down the time, but we're going to say crystal number 1 started at 18 minutes. It's a whole lot. We'll say 18 to 33 minutes. Okay, crystal number 1 is when that started. So you here at the right time, girl. Don't worry. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you. That's what's up. So I see with you guys, this is all about your emotional generosity to yourself. This is going to be about your negative self-talk, and this is going to be interesting, guys. So let's chop it up. Where are we as a collective? Those of us who are drawn to the agate crystal number 1, where are we as a collective navigating through this Taurus new moon internally? Interesting. Thank you. Okay. Oh, 2 major arcanas. Exactly what I said, y'all. Okay. We have the Strength card in reverse. Okay. And we have the Moon card upright. 2 major arcanas. So this is a big breakthrough for you. at the bottom of the deck, we actually also have the Eight of Cups in reverse as well. So, with this dynamic, what it's saying to me is that it's all about figuring out where you're drifting and what you're walking away from. You're actually going through a process of moving away from things that make you feel unconfident and sort of like it's not even about running from your triggers because I'm never going to advise that, guys. Unfortunately, the triggers are a natural part of the growing process. Okay, but what I will say is that you're going to learn how to manage your triggers better. You're going to learn how to manage the things that makes you feel uncomfortable and unconfident about your ability to sort of like execute and do certain things, right? This is for the most part, for some of you guys, let's clarify this a little bit as well. Where are we going to be experiencing this class of confidence being tested? In what area of life? In what area of life, guys? Thank you. Oh, wow. It was the whole thing. Right? Okay. Okay, so in what area of life? Interesting. Okay, okay. So again, it's kind of like what I was saying to you. It's about being able to kind of like really look at the things, the some of the Ten of Swords energy that you've had, like that backstabbing nature that's caused you to be a little bit defensive as a result. You have to look at the places where you kind of had to have certain abrupt endings or losses, like I said, that you may still be recovering from. You're not necessarily in the place that you think that you are, right? You're not all the way here as much as you think you are. You're actually, if anything, just trying to avoid disaster because you're kind of like scared of the changes that will sort of like come into play if you sort of make certain decisions ultimately, right? So instead, what you're choosing to do with a lot of the situations is withdraw. You're kind of going through this process of loneliness. You're kind of taking yourself, removing yourself from the situation because it's so overwhelming for you. But instead, the universe is calling on you to be the emperor. Okay. And it was so interesting because they said it in my to be the emperor. But the universe is calling on you to be the emperor. Okay, so in this dynamic, yes, the things that you're navigating through is generally quite overwhelming, particularly in the home situation. I want to say with the dynamic that I'm seeing in the context of it, there's four, which lets me know that this is a home situation. So there's aspects in the home that is basically causing you to feel a little bit insecure about how you're showing up in the situation. Basically, you're not showing up as your full self. You're actually showing up as your how can I put it? Your less than version of yourself. So, what do I mean by that? That's generally what low self esteem is. I'll tell you how we develop low self esteem. Actually, a lot of the times we develop low self esteem from actually dimming initially to make other people feel comfortable about having to be around our light. And then from dimming so much, we get into this habit of actually questioning ourselves. And then we start getting into contracts with imposter syndrome as a result, right? And then after that, sorry, I couldn't help myself. When I kept doing it, I couldn't help myself. It was just coming naturally, right? But when you get into the contract then with like the imposter syndrome, that's what then manifests itself as low self-esteem. Basically, your self-esteem starts to be depleted because you're basically not allowing for your light to shine as bright as it can. Your energy is now kind of like imploding on itself as opposed to being expansive, right? So just word to the wise, like any place where you sort of like feel yourself kind of like shying down during the process. And I know those of you who didn't necessarily choose crystal number one as well, this is just good information to have when you're navigating through like, you know, physiologies of anxiety. That's kind of the process of how anxiety manifests from the context of low self-esteem. So low self-esteem is literally, right, the self isn't able to steam up, literally it's not able to like get pumped to be its actual best self, man. It's too busy like shrinking to make everybody else feel better about itself. We generally develop this type of habitual pattern between the ages of 3 to 5. So with this dynamic, you're probably going to be sort of like placed back into areas within the psyche where you're going to be triggered to your 3-year-old self, and you might find yourself regressing to your child. And you're going to have to basically figure out a way to grow up really quickly in that moment. Won't he do it? God is so good. But look, this dynamic that you're navigating through with walking away from that, this is a beautiful place to be, because this is a major transition that's going to set you up for the 6 months that we're going to be going on this journey for, right? So let's go and have a little look and see what path you're actually crossing for this Taurus new moon as well. Oh, interesting. Again, we have caring connections are coming into question, and we're sort of like understanding who are we as the magician, sort of looking in the mirror of the universe, looking everywhere we go, we'll see ourselves, right? You guys are looking at me, we vibe with each other. That's because we see pieces of ourselves in each other, right? We're just as weird as each other, we're just as quirky, all that good stuff. So all of that is really, really coming into questioning during this season, I guess. We're really learning about how being in situations that were very hot and cold for us actually sort of like developed a little bit of a sense of where we're hot and cold towards ourselves, actually, because the self-esteem thing, it's okay, it's a coping mechanism that we develop as children, but eventually we actually have to grow out of that in order to become our best adult self. Otherwise, we kind of like get into other issues mentally and psychologically. Things get a little bit tricky to navigate, right? I call them demons, we say we're mentally ill, same difference. It's the same difference. That's because demons are playing with our minds, because we're not like, emotionally astute as we need to be to not even give them the advantage to be able to do certain things. But, God uses every opportunity for our good. So it is what it is. What path are they crossing? Those who will choose the agate. Interesting. Your mouth's going to be on fire. Whoa, your mouth's going to be on fire. I can feel my top lip burning. It's like, it's interesting. They're like, yeah, and this is how it's going to feel. It's like all of this stuff that's been pent up in here. Oh, you guys get into some tapping. Get into some tapping. Like as you're kind of going through the process, I would definitely sort of say that it's about sort of like tapping out negative, utilizing all of the areas that are connected to the throat chakra, definitely doing some tapping, my love, like literally tapping some good things into your body, right? And tapping some negative things out, because you're going to be going through, you might actually be the person in essence that is actually showing up when you regress, exploding, right? And quaking so big that your mouth's on fire. Your mouth is on fire. That's all they're saying to me. That was interesting, guys. That was interesting. They'd never done that to me before. And to put their whole point across, my mouth was literally sort of like I could feel it. But the path that you are crossing, my loves, interestingly enough, you're learning how to be strategical. Again, you're learning how to be strategical about the stuff that you haven't forgiven. So unfortunately, your third eye is off balance as well, which is what's causing this implosion in your throat chakra. You're struggling to be able to see ahead because you're so busy looking in the past and telling the story from the past and creating filters of your now based on the past situation. So do yourself a favor and stop there. Okay, that is a sickness. Okay, see your present manifesting. Okay, that may have served you once at a particular time on the journey, but this ain't for where we're going right now. So your tendency to basically like we have this thing back home in Jamaica, we say red eye. Yeah, it's like when your eyes, you're just constantly like living in the spirit of envy, constantly living in the spirit of envy, right? It's either you're receiving projected envy and you're actually having to navigate through like reacting and responding to that, or you're actually, for some of you guys, navigating through feeling like you're not necessarily where you want to be and having some regrets about some of the people that has basically prohibited you from being where you want to be, which isn't true. They did exactly what they were supposed to do to get you exactly to where you are now, and where you are now, that's the only place that they were supposed to get you to. Feel me? You're supposed to be continuing to get you to where you're trying to go. That's how that works. So if we do come to this place where we feel like, oh, there's no adjacent possibilities, there's no way to be able to get over this, because some people, they love to be like, oh my God, that was so unforgivable. I tell you, nothing is unforgivable for God, which means that we are going to be stretched to that capacity and degree, my loves. We don't have to always go there. God takes it at our own pace, at our own time, and He gives to His, children what He feels like they're capable of. But this is a path where we're having to be strategical about how we have basically let wickedness taken over our hearts, in all honesty, by this very distasteful spirit of resentment because of the things that we're not forgiving and moving forward. And those are some of the things, again, that's actually causing some self-esteem issues. Again, that's what's really going on in this like pot that's stewing. Okay, so let's talk about the layers of it, just so that we're all on the same page. The actual, like, where you are is actually navigating through your emotional insecurity. So your low self-esteem issues are going to be triggered. The path that you're crossing is to be able to be strategical as you're navigating through that. And some of the things that are in your way is a tendency to basically be a little bit stuck in your viewpoint on situations, right? There's no forevision, there's only hindsight. You're constantly looking behind. So you're cutting off your ability to be able to supply your lifeline moving forward, pretty much, basically, because your vision's. Could you imagine driving, looking behind? But yeah, Mercury retrograde, there'll be accidents every day. It's the same thing. Like if your vehicle is going one direction and your spiritual eye, your third eye, is literally like constantly observing, like programming based on past experiences, you're literally driving, looking behind. It's the same thing. So, next layer of this situation, let's go ahead and dive into it, right? We want to have a look and see how to work your light as you're navigating through the process of this. So let's have a little look and see, how do we work our light as we navigate through the process, for those of us who choose the agate crystal. Okay, again, it's like about not necessarily saying yes and figuring out why that sort of applies. Interesting. Or where are there things as well that we haven't said yes to? For some of us, we're actually going to be learning about why we're blocking certain blessings. It's because of our low self-esteem and our lack of confidence to do certain things. That's why. But yeah, let's see. Oh, dang. Okay, right. Let's have a look and see where this working the light space is going to be filled. I don't even know. I need to get a whole new table, y'all. Seriously. With all these cards that I'm having to like pull deck after deck after deck, and I have to see the whole story, because this is just one of those readings where it makes for like a whole book, basically, if I can see everything all at once. So, yeah. Right, so let's get into it. As far as the I literally have no space. Okay, so as far as working your light, interesting. Let's have a look at it. So, okay, they're saying that the past situations that didn't necessarily fill up your cup, right? The situations where you didn't get opportunities to rest, you didn't necessarily get an opportunity to kind of like have your refuge moment and regroup. Those are some of the situations that you kind of are fearful of, and you're kind of not necessarily wanting to allow for yourself to have a bit of a breakdown basically about all the stuff that you're kind of processing. And I think that that's the thing that's basically held you back actually. You built the low self-esteem as a defense mechanism, but now it's imploding on you, and you're having to like, you're going to be called during this cycle, especially because it's still the Scorpio full moon, to release it. You're going to have to release some of that pressure that you're putting on yourself, my love. It's pressure that you're putting on yourself, it seems like, because it's like, okay, people haven't necessarily like filled up your cup, so you've kind of like had to, you kind of had to get on with things, right? And now you're learning how to vocalize, okay, I need more support in this area. And you are going to see that, you know, people are going to struggle to be able to give what it is that you need, because they've been getting away with giving what it is that they had. And the two may not actually like match and make a full sum, okay, which is why we're left feeling in lack a lot of the times. But with this dynamic, they're saying what to do in order to work your light is to know that you're not necessarily walking this alone. And yes, in the past situations, people haven't necessarily filled up your cup. You haven't necessarily been in situations where you've been able to kind of like really refuel, and that's fine. You weren't supposed to then, okay? It is what it is. Those moments happen to be able to kind of like bring you to this moment. Why have a fear of change now, is what they're saying, when the ancestors walk beside you, the guides stand next to you, the presence of the ascended masters are all around you, and your path is divinely guided moving forward. You're kind of laying foundations and seeding the light, right? The whole point is to kind of like treat the process as you're navigating through the Taurus new moon like you've been training for this for lifetimes, because you have, right? I mean, admittedly, because we've been desensitized to this world, we don't have all of the information about our assignments, and we don't really know how to work our human anymore, and our human works us these days. But it's not all doom and gloom. Okay, we have been training for this for lifetimes, and it's somewhere back there in the subconscious, and instincts activates it. So when you find yourself in a situation where, you know, you're kind of like, you can feel, you can sense what's going on in the atmosphere, almost reading the room and reading the sort of like energy grid that's going on collectively in a situation. You are going to be called in certain places within family dynamics to be a voice of reason for some of you guys navigating through the situation. So you may have felt like you couldn't speak up before. This is going to be a good opportunity for you to be able to speak up and manage that low self-esteem and optimize that and get your confidence levels up there, right? Class is in motion. For some of you, this is really where you get to be able to speak up to certain family members and say, look, this isn't what we're doing. This is where I'm at with the situation. The little girl or boy that used to engage in the dynamics with you in this way, we're no longer doing that. I don't know what you're going to do now that that's not the situation, but I'm letting you know where I'm at. Unfortunately, this is where we are now. What are we going to do? Are you in or are you out? Okay, cool. There's a lot of those types of dialogues that's going to be taking place for you guys that have chosen crystal number one. And I think that it's really a case of understanding, like I said, where your firm boundaries are with certain situations, and where there are opportunities where you see that you can bend. And I'm going to say this, firm boundaries is like, no, you have to meet me here. Otherwise, I know that I'm going to continue to come out of character, because that's not what I tolerate. That's something that I used to tolerate. That is an outlived pattern. I no longer engage in that dance. Like, meet me over in the other studio. Let's chop something else up, you know? But you guys have to figure out what that formula is first. And that's what this climate is about as well. We have to remember Mercury retrograde's just finished. We're still in the post shadow period. So we're still wrapping up for the initial climate of this Taurus new moon, right? So a lot of this stuff is going to be coming out and spewing out. Let's see what our message from the universe is in navigating through all of this stuff, right? What is the message from the universe, actually? My fearless freedom lights up the world. Okay, guys? Word on God. Like, seriously, this is all about like activating the spirit of courage. I should have probably started with that as well as I was speaking. The spirit of courage is generally the spirit that you need firstly in most situations. It's a spirit that takes you up to the higher realms, basically, of consciousness. But let's have a little look and see what's going on. Message from the universe. Okay. Sorry, I'm just making sure that we have. Hey, Sammy, beautiful. How are you doing? Like I said, my fearless freedom lights up the world. Message from the universe. It's interesting. I literally just got an electric shock just here as well. That download shocked me. That was interesting. My fearless freedom lights up the world. You need the spirit of courage to dance with the spirit of bravery, and that's the perfect formula. Actually, I was telling you, you need to find the formula in terms of like how you guys are going to navigate through the situation, but the formula that you need to be able to activate your self-esteem path is courage and bravery first and foremost, and then take it from there. Try not to go too far into arrogance when we get into confidence, because then you'll go right back down to low self-esteem. The universe will knock you right back down real quick. It's a game. It's a whole game, guys. Nope. We're still here. There's lots to the process, my love. We're actually message from the universe now. Joy isn't the ultimate creator. Interesting. Your message from the universe is that you're not looking at life in this position where you can see that joy is the creator of what it is that you're manifesting. You're not manifesting from joy. Usually when we're not manifesting from joy, that means we're manifesting from sadness, which is sad. That means you're manifesting from sadness, my love, which is one of the aspects as to why the universe is kind of reflecting back at you the way that it is. Pieces of you is learning how to protect you, but you need to learn how to surrender. This is really ultimately the time for surrendering, interestingly enough. You're dealing with some imposter syndrome. We spoke about that before. You're not necessarily treating this like it was your birthright and you decided to actually be here, and you're doing this like you decided to be here, you know? What is the angelic guidance for us as we navigate through the process of all of this, guys? What's the angelic guidance? I'm like going with 6 decks. That's why it's so long, but don't worry. You guys will get there. We'll get there. Peaceful resolution. Okay, so this class is about learning how to apply resolution. This is conflict resolution class for you. You can't just internalize. You know what I was speaking about, how low self-esteem is formed, about dimming our life, dimming our light, and then also in subsequent dimming our life. That's not going to be like, it's not a peaceful resolution. It doesn't even feel good for you internally, I think, is what the universe is going to be doing. It's going to be like activating you to a point where it's like tick, 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 boom, right? You're learning that that's no longer a suitable coping mechanism for you as you're navigating through the process, and you're realizing that it's not improving your health, and you're not getting any better at dealing with the situations in that way by internalizing. So you're going to have to figure out how to be able to communicate. But sadness is really what wants to speak. Speak from the place that is upset, but you don't have to like be in the sadness, because when you get into the sadness, you start to project. And that's a little bit more tricky, because then people, when they're receiving that energy, naturally they'll get defensive, their walls will go up, and then you're dealing with a battle of the egos, basically, and that's not really what you were intending for the situation, but you don't know how you got yourself into that mess. Well, that was because your attitude was a little bit off. The behavior that you think that you're projecting isn't necessarily aligning with what you're trying to convey, right? And then there's another dynamic of the situation where you may just be focused on the goal and you're not necessarily allowing for yourself to be able to kind of like sit in the emotion of it all. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. You're going to learn why you kind of like allow for yourself to maintain this sickness as well, because that's what they're saying. It's a maintenance. Um, what's the what's the angelic guidance for them as they kind of navigate through the process then, guys? Thank you. Thought so. I thought so. It's not necessarily about what you believe, it's about finding the right signs for this one, right? To know when to compromise, how to compromise. When we're dealing with conflict resolution, this is the key component of resolution, the compromises that we're going to make. To what degree am I going to compromise? Okay, I can fall back by like 30 degrees on that perspective and I can meet you here instead. Okay, I can fall back maybe about 20% on this situation and say, this is just about as far as I can meet you with that situation. I actually need you to come a little bit further along because I've been carrying the leg of this race for a little bit longer than you, type thing, in terms of certain relationship dynamics. So a lot of these conversations are going to be coming up for you, especially because the Scorpio full moon is just like wanting it to be a little bit of a sting, right? Just so that it can shock the system enough for the change to happen. I was gonna say it's so wicked, but I think that's because we've developed such wicked ways, unfortunately, as a result of some of these ailments and impediments that we're navigating through, unfortunately. So that's why it's that harsh of a treatment for us during this climate. But yeah, my love, the advice for you is to learn how to compromise. Even when the spirit of jealousy is out here, you're going to be protected by angels. You're going to be protected by a team that is here to build you up and help you fill yourself up, because unfortunately in the dynamics that you're navigating through, you're learning how to be self-sustainable as well. Okay, let's not forget, we started off this whole process learning that this was for us to ultimately get to this place of this solid foundation, that emperor energy, knowing that we can sit and be still and we cannot be moved left, right, or center. We are just still all the time, constantly, right? And our peace is not determined by how a situation is or isn't going. Our peace is determined by us and how we're actually choosing to navigate through the chaos and also the calm, right? That part. So I hope that that was useful for you guys. Those of you guys who will choose crystal number one, because we haven't had anyone choose it yet. But that was a whole episode for you guys there, and I'm gonna have to pack up all these cards. So just so you guys know, obviously I'm dealing with 6 decks, right? And I'm dealing with a lot of layers to the process, because this is how they like the message from the universe to be read. I guess there's layers, and they usually like have me read all these different decks and ask these particular questions, because this is the best way for them to be able to communicate. Okay, so this aspect is impacting this situation and this and this. So hopefully, hey Katie, beautiful. Hopefully, you guys were able to sort of keep with the process, because I know there was a lot of cards in there. So many. So many. How are you doing, my love? How is the Scorpio full moon treating you? Because we're moving into the Taurus new moon to blend some of that energy out. We're making a cocktail, girl. We call it Scorp Torp. That would be Scorpio and Taurus. It was a play. Don't mind me. I'm going to grab the card because one of the cards fell, because I'm dealing with a small workspace. I think I'm going to actually start reading in the kitchen as well, guys. I've been thinking about that because I've got a massive island in there. And that's actually where I was hoping to be able to read, actually, when I initially came and saw the place. So I might just get into making that an actual thing because I can't deal with this space. And I think as well, like that's how God's kind of like utilizing Martin constantly banging on the walls when we're on our lives, telling me to shut up, basically. I say constantly, but it's happened once, maybe twice. No, one time. One time. I think he realized when I spoke it out that I was maybe preoccupied. He probably didn't expect me to say anything. Uh, hold on. Mm. I was dry all throughout that, actually. I don't know how I got through that. God is good. Right. We're going to go into crystal number 2, which is the citrine crystal. Right, guys. Let's get a timestamp on the citrine crystal. Okay, what time is it? 1:05, right? Crystal number 2, citrine. So for you guys are dealing with solar plexus activation. And this is going to be interesting for you guys because this is about manifesting. This is interesting. It's almost like, so when we're dealing with the solar plexus, right? What's going to be happening is almost like you're going to be going through a process where a lot of, I'm holding a piece of citrine right now. Yes, Amber. Yes. Look, I'm with you. I'm at the party too. My little citrine. It's thingy. What's it? Crystal chips. I like have a little package and I want to like just dive in and see what we get. So this week we got some citrine, and yeah, they're saying that this one we're actually going to be manifesting a lot during this type of season, and it's going to be very supportive for us. So the advice that they're going to be giving to us as we're navigating through this process is really to help us to be able to work through the organization of it all, right? Because this one is because we're manifesting so many of our blessings, right, are coming to form, and the organizing is going to be very, very key to how well we execute or not, right? And when I say organizing, I mean like down to a T, like literally. If your mind is usually in a certain type of context, because sometimes we can be very like, sometimes we're supposed to be in like tunnel vision for certain information when we're supposed to be like receiving certain information, but instead we're in abstract thought. So like the information is just being filtered through and like nothing's sticking. And it's like, whoa, whoa. It's just like traffic. It's just traffic going through like a junction, right? So with the citrine, we're going to be sort of like learning how to be able to manage through that noise traffic that's coming through, right? We're going to learn how to be able to, okay, let me get onto this. Okay, let me get onto that. And literally, we're going to be like quantum leaping onto so many different timelines in the seeds that we're sowing during this 6 months. By the end of November, there's at least 2 or 3 ego deaths that you're going to be navigating through to get to what it is that you're executing by then, right? So a whole new version. I'm hearing it. I won't even sing the song because I do it every time. I can't help myself. But a whole new world, okay, is going to be birthed for you. And it comes with its own challenges at times. Hey, beautiful Mina. At times, you may feel like you want to give up because you don't have foresight in the situation, right? You're planning, but you don't know, right? You're hopeful, right? For some of us, we're faith filled, but nonetheless, there's like still a little bit of trickling of hope in there as well. And hope vibrates differently to faith. Obviously, faith cannot be moved, it's very solid. Hope is shaky, it can be moved, it can be shaped and transformed into a different emotion. So, with disagreements, that hope can then become worry very easily. So when you kind of get to those places where your faith is being tested and you feel overwhelmed and you're a little bit on the edge, this is where you're going to be really, really seeing how by November, all that ish that you were navigating through between now and then, it was just like armor. You were literally just working out in the gym, like getting yourself ready for what's to come at the end of the year. And when I say at the end of the year, it's not like to say I'm saying, oh, just solely look forward to what's coming at the end of the year. I'm letting you know you're working towards something. And I'm letting you know, like God said, yo, delivery time, just like how you look out for your Amazon Prime. Okay, God's saying delivery time on that is November. Are you going to make sure that you're going to the places that you're trying to go and move the way that you're trying to move in the process whilst he's shipping this delivery to you for November? Okay. And this delivery is going to be like, oh my God, I got lots of cute outfits. You know what I mean? And when I say outfits, I mean lots of cute different characters, lots of new personality types. And when I say personality types, obviously you're going to be optimizing in different areas of your life. So it might bring certain changes where it might bring out different aspects of your personality, right? And those are some of the things that you're going to be sort of like, balancing your enthusiasm for life as you kind of like explore where this journey is going to take you, but also really, really being able to kind of like sit in embracing like a real sense of determination to manifest the things that you want. Okay, your determination is what is on call during this season. How determined are you is a question the universe is going to ask you. Crystal number 2, citrine. How determined are you? The universe wants to know. Okay, because you're going to get some pushback, basically. Right, let's dive into it. How have you been, Mina, my love? You can tell me in the chat, but I'm going to get into the reading. And Katie as well. How have you been, my love? Nice to see you guys in the room. I don't know if it is because I am a water sign in this Taurus season, but I have been dry and dehydrated. It has been a lot on my poor throat. Dang. Anywho, let's get into it. For those who will pick crystal number 2, the citrine crystal, where are they for this? Interesting. We go from being confident on the journey to places where we feel like we're not so comfortable. Interesting. Our naivety shall mark basically itself upon our progress or lack thereof. So the areas that we're naive simply means inexperience. And when I say inexperience, I mean you can go through something like a million times. So you can go through a cycle like a lot, but just because you go through the cycle doesn't mean that you've learned what it is that you're supposed to learn. So you're still pretty naive to the reality of what the context of the situation actually is, because you're still sat that cycle, if that makes sense. So that's what I mean when I'm speaking on the naivety. So again, it's one of those situations where we have to be observant of what the ideal on a situation is versus the reality and working through those variables accordingly, right? Let's go ahead and have a look at the dynamics. Where are they? Those who've chosen crystal number 2, where are they internally as they navigate through this Taurus new moon? Oh, crystal number 2, when did that start? I said 105, right? Hold on. Yeah, 105, crystal number 2. Oh, I mean, 1 hour and 5 minutes. longest pick a crystal reading ever, but that's just how it goes, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. The guides like to go into context. You guys know by now. It's actually something I used to feel bad about, but snap. Now y'all get it too. Where are we? as a collective, those who've chosen crystal number 2, navigating through the Taurus new moon. Where are we internally? Thank you. Interesting. Interesting. There's a whole storybook here. There's cards upon cards upon cards. So I can tell I'm already just going to be piling cards on top of each other, basically. This is an interesting one. Okay, so where are you internally? So for you, as you navigate through the Taurus new moon, right? I'm seeing this is so very, very interesting. You've got a couple of major arcanas here. We've got the World card in reverse, and that's in the past context of things, but we also have the Empress card, and that's actually sort of in the present context of things. So just to put it into perspective, the path that you're crossing is your previous anxieties, your previous sort of worries, the things that's been really quite intense for you, that's caused you a lot of like really, really deep anxiety and despair. Those cycles are going through a recovery period, right? And this is interesting because this is to do with like your indecision. So you're going back to places where you thought that you were actually indecisive, and you're going to realize that you already made a decision. You were just too unconfident to be able to actually kind of like execute said decision. And now you're actually going to have to commit to the decision. That's ultimately what's going to have to sort of like happen in the context of this moving forward. They're sort of showing that the indecision has actually left you with a little bit of heartbreak. Some of the things that you're kind of, you know, not necessarily processing are the very things that are basically holding you back from being able to execute this Empress. But, and however, she's present. She is just going to learn how to be able to, right, as she's kind of like in this present moment, she's going to learn how to actually get to a place where she is able to let herself be who she is. You know, the undertone, we've got the Magician in reverse as well. So there's a lot of you know, lack of resources that isn't necessarily being used. There's a disregard for resources. There's a resilience, but it's not necessarily being tapped into. And those are some of the things that are actually going to come into questioning during this season for you. How resilient can you be in some of these situations? I'm seeing that for some of you, it's like moving forward, you'll be navigating through, you know, just getting perspective on why you held off on certain things and what's going to cause you from holding off on certain things moving forward as well. You also understand that there's certain emotions that you're sort of repressing that's basically holding you captive to your now situation. You're going to find out exactly what emotions those are that's causing you not to be too resilient in the situation. So basically, you about to get triggered as well. Your trigger, interestingly enough, let's have a look and see where is all of this going to be taking place. Let's have a look and see what class this is as far as like sitting. Interesting. We're going to be reclaiming our power. Oh, this is an overall healing. We're going to be reclaiming our power, guys. So this is a class of self. This is a class of self. This isn't to do, I mean, it's not to say that it isn't to do with like people in general, but this is a class of self. So what that means is that as you navigate through the process, it's really you that's going to get pulled into questioning, right? Interesting enough, we got all the same cards that was actually sort of playing out in the undertone. We've got the Devil card in reverse. So you're reclaiming your power and going through a regenerative sort of place. You are going through inevitable endings with certain situations that you're navigating through. That's causing you to feel just this complete sadness, this utter feeling like your whole world's come crashing down as you've navigated through these disappointments. How are you kind of getting to a place where you can accept that some of these disappointments were actually a necessary part of your growing process, right? It's almost like you in particular are dealing with career transitions, my love. Career transitions is the thing for you that you're navigating through, interestingly enough. As you kind of like go through the process for you, it seems like they're saying that the things that you had worried about sort of like coming into manifestation and being heartbroken about how they hadn't necessarily turned out up to now, you don't need to worry about that. You're actually reclaiming your power. But first, you have to reclaim your power from the inevitable endings that you're still kind of like, you keep questioning, well, why? For now, that's exactly why. For the experiences that you're having now, for the experiences that the now is going to help you build and shape for moving forward. That's exactly why now. And I think you're going to be able to get this eureka moment in the process moving forward. It's not something necessarily that's going to happen per se in the actual like Taurus new moon, like within the next 72 hours of the Taurus new moon, basically. Um, but it is something that's going to happen once we've come down from the initial wave of the Taurus new moon energy. But the Taurus new moon energy is pretty much going to be like stirring the pot to bring a lot of that heartbreak into the emotional body, so that you can really figure out where within yourself you're looking to create from, where it is within yourself you're manifesting this greatness from as well. It's definitely going to be an interesting process for you because the career transitions that you've potentially had has basically put you in this position where the universe is showing you, okay, Empress, what are you doing, my love? What are you doing? What are you suppressing? What are you blocking and why? Right? And how can we allow for our best empress to be able to manifest? So I think that in this climate for you, compartmentalization is probably going to be your best tool. And it's one of those things where you're probably going to have to compartmentalize in order to be able to like manage a lot of the variables to the situation, right? Yeah. You're disappointed about your what claiming back your power looks like. I think you thought it was going to go one way, but it was never supposed to be that. That was just a possibility. It wasn't necessarily the highest probability, but it's interesting. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and have a look and see um, what path are we crossing. Those of us who have chosen crystal number 2, the citrine crystal. What path are we crossing? Let's have a look and see. Oh, we keep getting this third eye chakra just being so imbalanced. Okay. We are crossing the path of happy families, right? We're crossing the path of happy families and potentially looking outside of ourselves and identifying what that looks like from the external, I guess. And really just kind of like seeing what we want to be able to sort of create for ourselves as well. I think that a lot of these the path that we're crossing. So I think what they're saying is that obviously everything that we're manifesting is to be able to kind of like bring in that happy family dynamic. And I think with the manifesting that we're doing, the career changes that we've navigated through, that's really where some of this is coming into question. Basically, you're kind of like questioning if the career changes that you've kind of like gone through is really going to be helping you to manifest the happy family dynamic. But don't worry, God is like literally God is removing the bondage and the strongholds that the devil's had on you for God knows how many lifetimes. Dang. I was going to say for centuries, but that didn't even cut it. I just have to say lifetimes. Okay. God is removing a lot of these bondages and strongholds that has been plaguing you for a long time. Um, So for yourself as well, as you get triggered, I guess, to kind of like see what is going on in other people's reality, really just take some time to ask yourself as well. Maybe does that apply to me? Because I think that's another thing as well. I think God is also trying to sort of like make sure that we're doing what we're doing for the right reasons, basically. You know what I mean? What are our motivations? That if the motive is to really be able to get this happy family dynamic and put things into context and have life be this beautiful experience, then how do we get it? And what does that look like for us? Because it's different for everyone. You know what I mean? And even if you see somebody where you're like, oh, I like that, but I like it this way for myself, you have to find to what degree does that apply to you, right? And those are some of the questions, I guess, that we're going to be navigating through as far as the path that we're crossing. What are some of the things that we're envious of? Who are some of the people that are envious of us? That's actually causing a hindrance to our manifesting as well, because jealousy is a really, really sort of like destructive energy. Sometimes it's just one of those things where a person can't help but like be a little bit envious because, their situation's just not necessarily where they want it to be per se. But a lot of the times when I'm manifesting struggles, it's because we have, some negative energy attached to it. Usually it's the spirit of jealousy, basically kind of like blocking our blessings in a lot of different areas and ways. And the spirit of jealousy is usually activated by the spirit of competition. So I think for any of you guys that are navigating through those types of dynamics, definitely pray over yourself, pray over whoever the spirit of competition is moving through, so that they can actually sort of like feel worthy enough and feel comfortable within their own skin, to the point where they're not comparing themselves to anyone, to the point where they're actually coming out of character to be something else as well. So when you're dealing with all of this stuff, obviously it depends on what level or dynamic you're experiencing it at. Um, as you're dealing with all of these things, nonetheless, because you may be the person that has a happy family dynamic and you're dealing with jealousy, that's basically the energy is impacting your home situation. It's like incoming negative energy, and you're having to navigate through the disappointments that you've actually sort of experienced as a result of that in career situations, right? But yeah, I think this path that you're crossing is just reminding you that beyond this now moment, there's a whole castle that you're kind of like moving towards, right? And even for people who live in their castles, let's be clear, those in glass houses shouldn't cast the first stone, is what they say, right? So if you see yourself in a situation where you're busy basically like starting to speak negatively about somebody else's situation, trust and know and believe that that energy is coming all the way back to you from a place that you didn't even expect it, from a person that you didn't potentially would have even think about it coming from, because exactly what you put out there must be returned to you. It's called karma. So a lot of these times we're doing these things to ourselves based on what we're putting in the karma bank. Some of the times I know people like to say, oh, I didn't do anything and the universe is doing all of this stuff to me, but honestly speaking, it may not have been in this lifetime, but you picked up the karma somewhere. I'm sorry. I just have to say, it's just a fact, right? But yes, let's have a look and see what it's going to take to sort of work your light, and then we'll sort of look at your message from the universe. Okay, so how does one work their light during this process, guys? How does one work their light as they navigate through this process? You haven't necessarily been training for this particular aspect for lifetimes. This is just something, this one here, they're saying that you just must sit as a part of the class. Interesting. Okay. Show me. What can they do to work their life as they navigate through the process of all this? Protection, my loves. Protection, protection. Okay, interestingly enough, they're saying do something to shift your vibration. Dance with the energies, the rhythm of life as it continues to optimize. You need to call back your power and cut the cords and do a complete soul retrieval in any place where it feels like you are extending yourself to the point where you are duplicating, right? When you duplicate, and you're basically, so it's like when you lend your energy to other people, and you're kind of like giving yourself a lot of worry, worrying about other people's worries, taking on a lot of people's situations, basically carrying a lot of burdens of others as well. You're learning how to cut the cord in doing those types of dynamics. It's going to free up the bandwidth for yourself and your capacity and what you're manifesting for yourself. You're actually going to be answering your own calling. Okay. You're going to be really sort of sitting down and understanding, okay, what is your soul calling you to do? This is an inquiry card. So it's really about you sort of going within yourself and understanding, okay, that career situation didn't necessarily work out, but I'm still trying to focus on this happy family situation that I'm trying to manifest. And I can see that I'm being given an opportunity to basically reclaim my power, but what am I being called to do? How do I get there? Where is it? Is it 2 bus stops away? Is it 3? Is it 4? How many? But that part, okay? And as you answer the calling, it's not necessarily just about mothering yourself during this season. It's actually more about aligning your life. Where are the pieces of yourself not aligned? The universe is mirroring you and identifying that there's pieces of you that's displaced. It's not all the way aligned. So you really need to sort of have a look and really get an understanding of what your calling is. Do you want to answer the calling? And where do you sort of see yourself in terms of being able to move with that calling? Because you're going to need to protect yourself accordingly. You're going to need to call back your energy in places accordingly as you move forward. You're going to need to actually like put certain delegations in place as you move forward. You see what I'm saying? So, as you navigate through this process, I think that the universe is pretty much just asking you to be still with the process and the situation as things are actually sort of unfolding. And when I say be still, I mean be still in terms of like your mind and not necessarily being too impulsive on certain things, right? It's really just about making sure that you can be decisive in terms of like the clarity that's coming through here, right? Really being decisive about the quality, the perception that's coming through the third eye, because this is really, really giving you an opportunity to, like I said, answer your calling, right? Basically, you had one plan, and God said, scratch all that. I had an intention for you, and you shall fulfill said intention. You may not know what it is, but you shall find out. Okay. And then here you are living life, figuring it out. So let's go and have a look. Right. So, oh, interesting. Oh, damn. I was like, whoa. That was at 133 as well. 33. That's interesting. I told you that there was a lot of sequence with like 5s and 3s for these cycles. It's interesting. Again, the loving energy of the universe isn't what's being used to manifest at the minute as well. And there's not enough prayer and meditation sort of going into the process of the manifesting, basically. Those are factors to the situation. So we're not all the way clear. We're not all the way clear, guys. Okay. As we navigate through the process, we're going to sort of be learning about how the presence of love, I guess, can be such a strong motivator, right? I think God's saying like keep that energy focused on like the happy family dynamic that you want. and you can manifest it. You are going to get experiences of jealousy. You yourself may feel like you want some of what other people have, but the universe is saying that you're not necessarily at a place where your energy is creating your reality in a positive way. But you need to realize that what you focus on is what you manifest. And because you're not sort of focusing your energy in the right places as well, and you're busy in some places looking external, you're not necessarily doing what it requires basically to be able to kind of like get closer to love and actually be able to experience yourself as this conscious being that's having this experience. You're busy reacting to, I guess, the decisions that had been made for you. Okay, God said, no, my will, not yours. And you're sort of adjusting to those decisions, unfortunately. Um, and as you kind of move through the process, the universe, the message from the universe is to remember that you do whatever it takes to get closer to consciousness at the end of the day, right? And consciousness is becoming more and more aware, more and more realized, more and more in perceptivity of the reality that you're experiencing, right? So it's really about knowing that you can always trust the direction of the universe and know that you're being divinely guided. But in order to get to that place and be your best dragonfly, okay, you need to be your firm out energy, right? Where you're really taking in the wisdom of the experiences of life and allowing for your consciousness to be able to grow and expand itself. Because that's really what's happening. All of those experiences that you've been through, everything that kind of like crumbled up until now to basically prepare you for what's to come as far as your big moment, if you will. You'll be able to experience that 6 months from now, where it feels like, okay, all of this work situation that didn't work out for me then, 6 months from now, you'll be able to realize, okay, you were being divinely guided all along. You don't know how that situation was going to actually play out for you at the time. You just want to look and think about the hypothetical of the situation because you had a perception in your mind. Doesn't necessarily make it real, but it was a perception nonetheless, right? So, with those factors of the situation, I think the universe is saying to just remember that you are just allowing for your consciousness to be able to become more realized in this experience and all of these tragedies. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. All these tragedies that you have experienced, unfortunately, in terms of your career losses, has really just allowed for you to be able to be pushed in the right direction. And it's the direction that God said, not necessarily the direction that you felt that you should have. Yeah. Okay. Nonetheless, we're going to sort of close out the space and see what is the angelic guidance for us. And then we're going to move on to crystal number 3. Right. Angelic guidance, guys. What do you guys advise for those who choose crystal number 3, navigating through all of this? What do you guys advise? It's interesting. Okay, this isn't about compromising necessarily for you guys. Okay, this isn't the time to compromise. This is the time to be able to sort of like really, I guess, request what you're worth. You know, yeah, this is the time for perfect timing. Interesting. They're saying that the situation that you're navigating through is a perfect timing situation. So there's lots of variables. You're pouring into the cup, right? You're pouring into the cup as far as what you want. God's also sort of like pouring into the cup and master manipulating the entire variables of the situation to work in your favor, right? This being you. These are your desires that you want. These being God's desires that He wants for you as well. And God's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to be able to allow for things to manifest and ripe in the perfect season that I see that you're ready in all of these different areas and ways. So that's all that this situation was. God was just saying it's all about perfect timing with everything. The health of the situation isn't going to improve There's hard no's in certain career situations that you've been navigating through. And, it's not necessarily even about letting go. You just simply weren't ready when it comes to certain things. You weren't feeling it, right? It didn't give you that anymore. But within the next few months, you're going to need to communicate clearly. It's not necessarily about stopping anything that you've got going per se. And you don't even have to remain positive about the lack of abundance that you'll be experiencing, because there isn't a wait period uh, with the dynamic that you're navigating through. It's just a perfect timing situation for a peaceful resolution. So it's just going to take a certain amount of time. Basically, certain things are going to have to move through the space before you can get to the peaceful resolution that you're kind of looking for. It's not necessarily about listening to intuition in this one. It's more a case of saying yes when the universe presents the opportunities to you where you haven't necessarily had to take any action to sort of like receive your something better moments where it's just like, oh wow, this is an amazing yes for me. So yeah, that's the guidance for you guys. Just know that this is a perfect timing situation. And as you're kind of navigating through the process, God is going to really allow for you to be able to understand where you've been holding yourself back the entire time, anyways, to be fair, and why you've been holding yourself back during those periods as well. You know, I say you were holding yourself back, and this is why, because obviously God didn't allow for that to manifest for a particular reason. Like you may not be privy to the reason because you're thinking of yourself in one contrast, but then God has the ability to obviously see in the depth of your soul. And a lot of times, obviously, as humans, we just lie to ourselves. We're like, yeah, I'm good. And it's like, no, you're not good. Like, you practically dying on the inside. But you still gonna say that you're good. That part. So yeah, we're going to be adjusting to some of these new norms and dynamics. It's about being determined, but it's also about making sure that you are applying yourself appropriately as well. Okay, it's definitely about being resourceful. Um, so yeah, I hope that that was useful for you guys. We're gonna go on to the final crystal, which is crystal number 3. And then we're going to close out the space because your girl has got an early start tomorrow for one. But then also I actually have not only an early start tomorrow, but I also have a dance class tomorrow as well. That's it. I was trying to think what's going on in my life tomorrow. I've got dance class tomorrow. I've got a bunch of stuff going on at the minute, y'all. So if I don't put the post out tomorrow, I'm definitely going live on Friday because that's what I've got it down on my schedule for. I can't really fit it in any other time this week. Okay. I might be able to fit it in on Saturday, to be fair, but I kind of don't want to because I just want to come into the space and get it over and done with and then move on with my weekend and get everything nice and popping. Right. So we're going to go on to crystal number 3. Crystal number 3. We are starting it about 1 hour and what is it? An hour and 43 minutes in. We're starting crystal number 3, right? So I'm going to put those in to the context of things after the chat and the live is finished and closed out so that you guys have the information for future reference if you want to come back to it, basically. And I'm going to need to come back to it. So we have crystal number 3, which is the black obsidian crystal. So this is to do with like the crown chakra. interestingly enough. And it's all about psychic protection during this climate. It's not necessarily just about protection, but it really is about just really making sure that your mind is actually clear. And protection also means from yourself sometimes. And we have a tendency to basically like be destructive in our thought process and patterns as well. So I think that for those of you who've chosen crystal number 3, the black obsidian, you're probably navigating through a process where your thought pattern was probably vibrating pretty low in terms of like you just wanted a comfortable life basically for you. You wanted a comfortable life, but you wanted to think and basically cast these words over your life about the ideal. Like you weren't necessarily basically doing what you need to do for yourself as well. You weren't doing what is it that you weren't necessarily doing per se? Sorry, because they're saying to me you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing as well. You were receiving the downloads on certain things, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, but you weren't necessarily sort of executing yourself as well. And for you, during the process of this Taurus new moon, you're going to be navigating through a climate where the Saturn retrograde is going to catch up to you during that process. And you are going to need to actually like utilize the black obsidian crystal actually to be able to sort of navigate through some of the mental torment that's going to come in as a side effect of some of those decisions that you had been making. I want to say in the last 6 years, to be honest. I want to say in the last 6 years because the Saturn retrograde, it feels like it's really just digging up stuff from quite some time ago. Um, and I think for some people, it may actually even go all the way right back to 2012 for some of the stuff that is actually going to be sort of like coming back up to haunt you, unfortunately. And I have to say haunt you because it causes a quaking inside of your body, it causes a discomfort, it brings you into this place of being very much out of your character and just not necessarily being completely present in terms of the way that you're navigating through the situations, right? Your spirit of perseverance basically is constantly on watch, is how this process works for you. Yeah, you are going to find yourself being passive from time to time as well. That's a part of your coping mechanism that you're probably going to be using as a shield to navigate through certain situations as well. When you find yourself being defensive or a little bit on edge about a circumstance that feels like it is beyond your control, right? Um, what I will say with everything that you're navigating through as well, bearing in mind that Saturn is going retrograde in Pisces. I think for you, obviously, that's going to be taking place on the 17th of June, and we've got the Cancer new moon taking place on the 18th of June, basically. So we have Saturn going retrograde in preparation for the Cancer new moon to set up the scope, right, for these foundations that are being laid. And as these things are actually coming into manifestation, I think the thing for you is that you're going to kind of find that there were some things, there were some restrictions that you had previously that some restrictions were good, some of them, you know, you needed to let loose so that you could grow. And other restrictions you're actually going to be finding out during this cycle how they've actually affected your psyche, basically. Some of the decisions that you've made to withdraw in certain relationships, you're going to learn how that's impacted the way that you actually sort of like move through betrayal and how you actually sort of move through manipulative presence of people who try to basically be stealthy all the time, those shape-shifting spirits that's constantly trying to get away with something. You're going to be sort of like navigating through a process of that during this climate and really sort of like letting it be known where you are in terms of your transition, right? You're being very, very overly protective of yourself as you navigate through the process because you're thinking clearly, you're communicating authoritatively, and you're actually allowing for your power to be able to express itself and show itself on all these different planes, right? Through your words, through your actions, through your emotional ability to process certain things as well. Okay. Right, so let's have a little look and see, guys, right? Where are the collective who's chosen crystal number 3 for this Taurus new moon? Interestingly, enough for you guys are feeling burnt out. Definitely feeling burnt out by a lot of these situations that you're navigating through. Feeling like you kind of want to just take a minute to just sit and rest. Like there's this sense of restlessness, basically. And that's one of the things that you're going to be having to navigate through because, you know, the progress is going to be what it is. You can't speed up the process. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think you're looking at it potentially from a perspective of lack of progress, but it's the process actually occurring and taking place and just really being what it's there for to actually create. And creating, it takes a process. You can't be like who you are becoming who you are tomorrow. I mean, you get one step closer tomorrow, but you're not that person. You know what I mean? It's a process. So where are we as a collective as we navigate through the Taurus union? Thank you, guys. Okay, so Taurus new moon, where are we? Okay, so let's see. Taurus new moon. Emotionally, it's interesting as well because that's literally again what I said about the self-imposed restrictions that you're going to be navigating through. Mentally, you're going to be sort of like identifying where there's been illusions that you've kind of used to justify your restrictions that you've kind of put up, the walls that you've put up. You're tempted as well to basically decide to kind of like utilize some of these diversion tactics as well, from what I can see, because you're definitely dealing with this Ten of Swords energy, definitely dealing with this burnt out energy, not necessarily feeling like there is much progress, like I said, but that's because there's a lot of restrictions, basically, that you've actually manifested for yourself based on variables of the situation that you don't yet know or understand. Pretty much it's the best way that I can put it. There's a whole world, a whole universe that's taking place around you, and you're busy sort of like looking at the perception of the reality from where you are now, but where you are now is just a moment in comparison to the transition of the entire context of time that's taking place, right? And it seems as though like being in this imposed situation is causing you to feel like nothing's going on, nothing's changing, it's all the same. I'm bored. I am, frustrated by just all of the missed opportunities that are actually sort of just coming along with the situation. So, yeah, you, my love, are basically dealing with diversion tactics, self-imposed restrictions that's going to cause you to miss opportunities. So again, right, blessings upon blessings coming through during this season for us with the solar plexus activation, right? And we want all of that. We want all of it. Sorry, not solar plexus, crown chakra activation. We definitely want all of it, but our ability to basically be rigid is exactly what is causing the exact same feeling of being bored and feeling like you're missing out on opportunities because we're robbing ourselves of opportunities, essentially, right? Because of the ultimate sort of like exhaustion and feeling completely defeated and feeling like we're constantly just navigating through crisis after crisis after crisis, and there's never any end to it all, right? That part. So I think it's one of those situations where we really have to we have to have like a come to Jesus moment where we just say, okay, cool. I'm not necessarily like sure about how this situation is going to pan out, but I'm gonna sort of decide to trust the process at least, even if I can't trust myself. Right? Let's have a little look and see what area of life is this taking place for us. Oh, interesting. This particular area for us, guys, is to do with people that we don't necessarily want to reunite with. People that we don't necessarily want to reunite with. We're navigating through a subconscious thing where some of those, I think it's a subconscious fear actually. That's why we're using this as a diversion tactic. We're kind of like, oh, I don't want to be in this person's space, or oh, I don't want to be around that person because they trigger this, or you've kind of like created a lot of these boundaries. But again, like I said, God has a plan whereby He positions certain people. If their heart's willing to basically deliver a certain blessing, you'll be able to sort of like be blessed by that person. So even though you might feel as though you want to create these self-imposed restrictions and kind of like block off certain people in a certain type of way, you also have to make sure that you keep yourself open as well, to be fair, because this looks like it's going to deal with situations where there's potentially old friends, old lovers sort of like coming back into the space, family members that you haven't necessarily spoken to for a long time. You're literally having to protect your energy in the sense that you're not necessarily the person that you once was when they kind of like were experiencing you. But now you kind of have to like, yeah, you have to let them know. You have to let them know. It's interesting, actually. You have to let them know. There might be a person that you kind of like dismiss during this cycle that actually has a blessing for you that is going to be delayed because you kind of said no, basically, during this, with this type of dynamic that I'm speaking about. Continue, guys. What path, what area of life is this sort of like taking place? Put it into context. Now, put it into context for me, guys. What area of life is this taking place? Thank you. Yeah, it's like I said, friendships, right? We got 5 of Swords energy. We have friendships, and not just friendships as such, but it's one of those things. We've also got the 7 of Swords energy in reverse as well. So that's talking about breaking free from the mental challenges of the conflicts and certain situations where people were just like wanting to be manipulative and they just wanted to sort of like win at any particular cost. And you're now breaking free to win at any cost. You're choosing yourself, you're choosing your freedom, you're choosing your peace. Essentially, again, this is for you, ultimately, my loves, to execute your experience as the emperor. Again, you have the same undertone during this cycle as the ones that are sitting the citrine class. You need to be able to kind of like, in order to create this solid foundation that you're trying to manifest for yourself, this emperor, this masculine energy that is so solid, that's so secure, that is so grounded within itself. It is the earth. Okay. But yeah, you're kind of like, this is going to be taking place for you, particularly in friendships. I want to say you might experience it, some of you, in family dynamics where you've kind of like cut a family member off and they're kind of, coming back up to basically like see what they can rub. You know, it's like a genie. They want to rub the lamp and see what they can get as far as like wishes. If they got any wishes, they want to see if a genie comes out. And they're gonna try and see if you're that genie. And for some of you guys, you'll find that your person that you're navigating through a situation with is that they're coming back in with blessings. So for some of you guys, you may have a past situation potentially with a partner or an ex partner who is kind of, triggering you to the point of wanting to basically affirm boundaries again and put things definitely back into a position where you're completely back in isolation and they don't have access to you, basically, which is where you're heading. For those of you guys who are navigating through this dynamic with a lover or an ex fling, sorry. Okay. Let's have a look and see where are we. Need to have a look at the path that we are crossing, right? What path are we crossing? Oh, this is a door to romance, is it? Or is it not? Let's have a look and see. Yep. We're kind of like identifying where is the door to romance exactly, right? I told you there's like a few different aspects of how the situation is going to play out. A few people are going to experience it in terms of their friendship circles. A few people might experience it with past family members, like I said, and others are definitely experiencing it in their romantic relationships as well. So this is where you get to let go of deceit. You get to let go of holding on to this perception that, things is one way when the reality of it is something completely different. Breaking free from the mental challenges of having to, constantly be emotionally secure and calm and just compassionate all the time when you're not necessarily feeling like people are respecting your own boundaries and protecting your own peace and really just considering you at the bare minimum. People are just like constantly like this. So you're now taking off the mask, you're releasing what you thought you had to do to basically meet certain people's expectations, and you're now just presenting as your authentic representation of yourself. And there's an adjustment period that's going to be taking place. So that's the path that you're crossing, basically. And as you cross that path, there will be some self-imposed restrictions. It may be yourself or the other person that you're navigating through the process with who actually instigates the imminent isolation class for both of you guys to sort of like kick it into gear two as far as the next phase. But yeah, the path that you are crossing is literally releasing the spirit and presence of deception so that you can be cool, calm, and collected, and especially compassionate towards yourself and the process that you also have, and finding the right balance in terms of how to be compassionate for others as well in the process of that. Okay. I want to say as well, let's go and have a look and see how to work your light with the situation, right? How do we work our light for those of us who've chosen the black obsidian crystal? How do we work our light? It's interesting because one of the things that they were saying is that it's about protecting oneself, and not just oneself, but self-reflecting everywhere. So protecting Lumeria, the heaven that's being created on Earth at the minute. How is that balance coming into sort of play? What does it take? Where do you need to prioritize? How can you adapt to be able to optimize to the process that's occurring? Those are some of the things that's really going to be crucial to this process that you're navigating through. How does one work their light as they navigate through the dynamics of this season? Guys, thank you. Thank you. So you're crossing a path of understanding that you are the priestess, right? How are you being called to step up and lead? This is all about like your leadership skills coming into sort of question, right? it's not necessarily about setting boundaries in this particular class. It's about learning where you need to break the chain. Actually, it's about learning where you need to sort of heal and rewrite the pattern on certain situations so that you can make way for a brighter future. Because as you awaken and you activate at a cellular level, you also need to be able to get grounded. You have to stay grounded so that you can be in your best empress energy, that warrior woman vibe where you're not afraid to do what needs to be done. And you ask yourself constantly, if I weren't afraid, what would I do? If I weren't afraid, what would I do? You know, just so that you don't have to dim your light to basically sort of fit in to what the actual expectations are. You know, there's a lot of beauty and devotion that is present, and you'll be able to sort of teach that once you can see that and perceive that in the reality so that you can lead by that perception. So the way to work your light as you navigate through this process is really to ask, where are you sort of being called to step up and lead, and how can you lead in those areas? What's required? What strengths, what weaknesses do you need to optimize in order to be able to get the job done? Because it's going to be on and popping. Okay. Let's have a look and see what is our message from the universe, I guess. Let's see, what's the message from the universe as we kind of navigate through the process of it all? Okay. The message from the universe has an undertone of letting you know that your energy creates the reality that you're sort of manifesting. It's weaving little webs, basically, you know, like a spider. It's an interconnectivity. And you need to understand that what you do focus on is what will grow, and it will kind of like become a little bit of an art that you've created, you know, just like how spiders like create their little webs. It will be a display of the art that you've created, positive and negatives, whatever it is that shows up. It's still your creation, it's what you created. What is the message from the universe for those of us who would have chosen crystal number 3, guys? As clearly as you can. Thank you. Crystal number 3. Okay, so they're sort of saying that for yourself, interestingly enough, and we already said this, that this is going to be sort of like manifesting towards November times, but this is particularly serious for you. Hey, Charlie, beautiful, what's up, girl? This is particularly serious for yourself because they're saying that in the past you haven't necessarily looked at your reality as you know, a stream of love supporting your dreams, and it's probably not necessarily felt like that. It just kind of has probably been one of those experiences where you've been going through your faith walk, and you kind of learn as you're navigating through the process that your faith has the power to turn your trauma into healing, your conflict into growth, and your fear into love. Right? That's a reminder from the universe that as you walk through this path, your power that you're able to sort of like generate from the process of going through everything that you go through in your environment, and what's, you know, some of these components that's basically triggering you and spiking, I guess, your serotonin levels. You're kind of learning to turn all of that trauma into healing, not only for yourself, but for those who will also be able to benefit from it within the collective. And then you learn how to navigate through the conflicts that you're going through internally, because you realize that that's allowing for you to grow. That's really just allowing for you to be able to be purified, for lack of a better way of putting it, purified to the point where, you know, you aren't necessarily moving just from a place of fear, but you're moving into love, and you're moving away, not necessarily from fear, but you're letting fear guide you into where love isn't necessarily in its healthiest state, basically, because they're supposed to be a team. They're supposed to work together, not against. Um, They were designed for that anyways. I guess moving forward, the universe wants you to also understand that if you're unapologetic about what you desire and trust that what you focus on will grow, then you can come to a place to accept that the love of the universe is your primary teacher and you will always be guided back to the light. However, the situation may play out, however difficult it might feel, however challenging it might tell you internally that you are, like however many times you want to tell yourself that you can't do it, you won't do it, you're going to fail. What's the point in trying? You might as well quit. Like, as you navigate through the process of everything, the universe is calling you to step up and lead, and lead you shall. Okay, so it's not necessarily about boundaries per se externally with anyone. It's about internal boundaries with yourself and knowing when you're getting an opportunity to execute on your leadership skills that you're naturally designed with, because you're designed for the quest. Okay. The restrictions that you're navigating through, they will apply. You will know how to apply them, where, when, and how. Like I said, for some of you guys, you'll see that it's happening in romance class. For others, it's actually happening in friendship areas. And for some of you guys, these are long lost family members that you haven't engaged with for a while, and you're going to have to maybe see where you can teach these people to have some compassion. And the best example is a reflection. Okay. The best example is really learning how to um, execute, because sometimes we want people to do the thing that we want them to do and we're just so frustrated with them not doing it, we just we're like, do it already, right? And then our frustration is really just going to manifest more things for us to be frustrated about. What they really need is patience. So if we don't necessarily have the capacity to give them the exemplary of the spirit of patience in that moment, take a minute, step away from the space, move away from the situation so that you can regroup, rethink, um, and really understand why basically you're being so restrictive in the situation, and not just yourself. Maybe you're the one experiencing some resistance from someone and it's triggering you, right? To kind of like get to that place where you're just like, ah, just because it feels like obviously they're igniting your trauma. They're kind of like reminding you of places that you once had lived before in here, in this little human, right? But they're supposed to, they're designed to do that, right? Yeah. The spirit of patience is one of those things where sometimes, right, I have conversations with my guys where I'm just like, well, how much more patience do I need? They're like, well, that's the whole point of patience. It never actually runs out. It only actually, like, if you're not applying patience, you're not in the vibration of patience. So it's not that you're impatient, you're just not on patience. You're now on urgency, basically. So you need to go back to the appropriate setting. Okay. So when you find yourself sort of like navigating through those types of dynamics a little bit, come out of urgency mode, right? Because it's only going to cause further frustrations, and maybe lean into patience a little bit and really see how you can actually like utilize your leadership skills in the situation, because somebody's going to have to lead. Otherwise, it's just going to be the blind leading the blind. Okay. And everybody's just going to be going around the room like this because nobody can see, right? If I'm not patient, I'm always frustrated and in urgency. This is how the human works, Mina. I'm telling you. This is why I'm giving you guys some cheat codes. I'm giving you guys some hacks. Like emotions, my fluent language, I guess, being an Aquarius Pisces cusp, I learned how to intellectualize my feelings a lot. So these are the different like layers of how the modalities and the switches work. When you are frustrated in a space that requires patience, you're no longer in the spirit of patience, you're now in the spirit of pretty much just being at a place where you're defining urgency, 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 urgency. So basically in your lower self, you're in your human form. Basically, this notion that time is somehow running away. You're in your human form, and you need to kind of like elevate the consciousness beyond the human experience of itself. Because listen, the soul know what it's here to do. You feel me? Right, guys? Right? The soul knows what it's here to do. So it never feels like it's it's running out of time to do anything, because it knows that it has just about enough time to do everything that it was designed to do. Even the things that I think I learned the other day, actually, even the things that we perceive to be accidents, sometimes those things are written that way, actually, because that is precisely the dynamic that it's going to take for the lesson to be learned. The universe will go to any lengths to teach a lesson. So let's do ourselves a favor and make our lessons as easy as possible on ourselves. I'm sorry. I'm honestly like, I'm a bit of I say to people all the time, like, I'm such a studious student of life. Like, I actually, as much as I complain about certain things, like, I actually like being here and actually being like a student of life and learning how to hack certain things and get on with certain things. And like, I enjoy my human experience for the most part, right? It hasn't been the best story, but hey, shit, it's given me some like real giggles along the way. I mean, I would have read the page and be like, girl. It's one of those types of situations. And I feel like God, as an author, is just so tremendously like intricate with even the finest of details, that we really have to be willing to understand that when God is positioning us to be able to lead, it's usually because we're deciding to fall back, basically. And we're the only variable in that equation that can actually shift and bring the change that we want to be able to see. Like, we're actually the only equation. So unless you lead, you're not going to be able to find said way to the freedom hall, like literally the other side of the bridge, where you're beyond just like the difficulties that you've had to navigate through to be able to acquire your freedom in certain situations. So leadership class is pretty much what this Taurus new moon is going to be for yourself, really. I mean, yeah. Let's close out the space and sort of see as well then what the angelic guidance is for us, right? As we navigate. What is the angelic guidance for us, guys, as we navigate through the process of this? Okay, so this isn't necessarily about being assertive, because that doesn't hold the key for this equation. Okay, that's not the math that we need for this equation. Let's have a look and see what the guidance is. Oh, they're saying that the guidance for us is to make some reconsiderations on certain aspects of what we're doing in terms of how we're choosing to be the earth angels that we are, right? How we're choosing to basically execute and represent ourselves. The situation won't improve within the next few weeks. They're saying that that's very clear and evident. So you will have to practice some forgiveness as you navigate through the process of it. And as you continue to sort of wait it out, there won't necessarily be a peaceful resolution per se. There'll be a resolution. I don't know about peaceful. There might be a quaking resolution or a conflicting resolution that actually brings, the situation to a close. But they're advising the best thing to do is to trust the process. Trust God's got your back. Trust the universe knows what it's doing. Certain things where it wasn't necessarily the right time, it was part of it was because you weren't necessarily sort of clear on the actual answers. You weren't me dictating on the answers. And when I say me dictating, the download wasn't coming from higher self. Lower self was basically executing that. So that was a human construct of how you are going to be manifesting a certain situation, and God wants more for you than that. Okay, the human is very limited. Okay, that's the best way that I can put it. Because that's how they're giving it to me. God wants so much more for you than that. The human can only see within the confinements of its traumas and what that potentially means for its power and its power source, right? Whereas God, it's a completely different beast, right? They're saying to sort of like listen to your intuition. Anywhere you sort of feel like there isn't a yes, take that action accordingly. But sometimes there's something better where you don't get a small yes, but you get a big yes, exclamation mark, right? Where you know that you didn't need to worry all along because the situation was always going to be working out in your favor, and it's not going to reveal itself to you within the next few months either, because you don't have to communicate per se, but just make sure that you don't stop believing in what it is that you're doing within the next couple of weeks. There isn't necessarily going to be the right opportunities, but if you remain positive, there's not really the right network just yet to bring the kind of outcome that God wants for you. So just continue to get more information over the next few weeks. um, don't necessarily ask for help from others, but help will be supplied to you. It's not necessarily a time for you to choose a new direction when God is presenting that help to you, because we spoke about this. If you're not careful, you'll miss opportunities because you're causing yourself to be very rigid, right? And God's trying to open you up to the abundance that's inevitably present for you at the minute through this period of lack of success that you're going through. It's not for your recovery, because God didn't say that this is the recovery period. He's saying that this is a process of getting to that place where you have recovered. Um, you don't need to ask your angels or look for any signs. You're actually ready to not necessarily be assertive, but to embrace the happy changes that are coming. It's not about perfect timing. This is already in full effect. The health of the situation is improving because there isn't no compromise. There isn't any other way for it to work. This has been up to you based on the no's that you've given in the past and the no's that you're choosing not to do now, because you're allowing for yourself to be open to the possibility of everything that God has to provide to you. You're letting go and letting God so that you can relieve yourself of the no's that once held you back from the possibilities of the yes that God had in store for you all along. Okay? That part. Whew, that was a hard tug for y'all. I read from like the deck there. But yeah, guys, like I hope that that was useful for you guys, because I don't know if you guys were able to like really tune in and keep on to like Mina, trust me, like God is doing amazing things for us during this climate. If you missed like the start of like I think 18 minutes, I started to do a little bit of an astrology, and then the first reading was really actually around about 33 minutes in. um but definitely sort of like, go back and have a look. Yeah, forgiveness is like what happens when we're sort of like delayed with forgiveness is that it basically like it shortens our timeline, for lack of a better way of putting it. I was explaining to people, it's like driving like this. If you're driving that way and you're looking behind that way, so many accidents can happen. And it's the same context when you're bringing your human forward to your future plans, but you're constantly looking back at things that you haven't let go of. When you continue to hold these things, unfortunately, you create prisons for the people that you're holding captive in those emotional prisons that you're holding them captive. And the longer that you're there holding them captive, you have to have a piece of yourself fragmented to be there warring with them in your mind. Like literally, like if there's somebody that you haven't necessarily forgiven for something, do you know how much time in your day that demon probably comes and whispers to you about how bad they made you feel and how rubbish they treated you and how shit basically the inevitable ending of that situation perhaps was, right? You literally are warring with like these unresolved feelings of acceptance, because that's what happens with forgiveness. It's a whole process. You actually go through the process of accepting. When you're struggling with forgiveness, that means you need to firstly start with acceptance. It's a stage system. I know I say all the time that I'm gonna put this information out there, but it's coming, y'all. It's coming. But that's the first stage, acceptance, because you have to firstly accept, not necessarily that what was done was right, but the fact that it happened, right? And then moving from that stage, you can then move into the other layer where you accept that it happened, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that was right for you. Was it what you needed at the time? Can you say that in hindsight? That's a trick that I find with forgiveness. If you can look at your now situation to see what the then situation was actually sort of like helping your growing process to do, then it's a little bit easier, right? Because the Ho'oponopono prayer is also a really good one, actually, for forgiveness. I utilize it for a lot of different things. Yeah, girl, trust me, Mina. The when we're dealing with forgiveness, like it's such a beast of a demon, like it literally like prohibits us from our own future, unfortunately. Like we hold ourselves back from our future because we're so busy like creating all of these prisons for people that we have to basically create all of these guards for, basically, and we have to fragment pieces of our soul basically to constantly be in these places watching these people so that we can have these continued battles with them because we choose not to like let them go. The forgiveness isn't necessarily for them, it's for us, so we can call back our energy and actually become one whole being again so that we can actually move forward instead of moving forward like this, right? So this is definitely a situation where we get to even choose how to forgive ourselves for certain decisions that we actually made because we put ourselves in certain positions and we allowed certain situations to transpire, right? The universe is just saying, like, snap, like, God doesn't really have any not to say that God doesn't really have any boundaries. God has a lot of boundaries because I've learned boundaries from God. Basically, God was like, no, beautiful, that's not for you. You put that together. So I'm glad that it made sense, beautiful. I'm glad because I want to be able to kind of like make sense with the process of it because it's important for what's coming with this Taurus new moon. Because obviously, you know, Taurus can be quite stubborn and rigid, and it's like, whoa, but that's not going to serve everyone during the process of this new moon. You know, for some people, they might be able to get away with it. We spoke about the citrine crystal. I think that was one of the areas where we were being asked to set boundaries and stuff, or I think it was the agate, one of the two. We were asked to set boundaries. That's not the class that we're sitting in here. This isn't about boundaries. It's about like really knowing like where you've excelled, where your strengths are in certain situations, and like when you step up to basically lead and be the high priestess, you have to be able to observe and read the entire room. It's not just about you and how you feel, basically, which is why forgiveness is an absolutely important part of the process of that, because it's beyond you, right? Leaders also need to know when to follow, and they have to follow suit of what's actually going on around them within the environment. I can't tell you how many times I want to do this, I want to do that. I told you I've been waiting to get put on for like ever, okay? And God's been like, no, the collective are still growing, they're still developing. I'm still finding my language to be able to put the linguistics of everything together so that it's copacetic and it makes sense. So I'm glad that I'm doing a good job, Mina. Thank you for clarifying that part, okay? Because I was supposed to be training for this, so hopefully they mark me well for that. Thank you. Sorry, it's a whole thing, but I'm so serious about my grades at the same time, okay? Because in this life, I get to be an overachiever, and yeah, I want to be able to kind of like keep the rhythm of that going, right? But no, honestly, guys, like God is doing so many amazing things for us during this season. I just like at the start of the thingy, I You're laughing, Mina, but I'm so serial. Okay, I'm so serial. But yes, my love, I couldn't even say that word for so long because it was a trauma for me because like it was a word that I said with my friend. It's a South Park word, but that friendship no longer exists, and I like completely removed that word from my vocabulary. Sorry, y'all. I'm having a moment with self. Self is growing, so I'm just gonna give her a pat on the back because I totally just moved through some trauma. I had to remove that entity like maybe no, 2 moon cycles ago. Yeah. So that means I'm growing. Okay. Because I can even use that word. Um, and I couldn't use it for years because the trauma of that loss actually was so embedded in my emotional sequence. But what I'd say, guys, if you guys find yourselves feeling the intensities of the energy, you're supposed to. Okay, don't fight it. Lean into it and move through it because it's going to get you on the other side. God's preparing us for the Aries new moon. Um, Girl, I'm telling you, Mina. Sorry. You know when you push it up because you gotta push it. That's the only way I'm gonna get muscles. Okay, but no, seriously, I had been working on that for a while, so that really just highlighted to me where I am in terms of like that trauma. To know that I'm actually growing and I can be okay and comfortable to sort of like speak and express certain things. Um, Yeah, because these things makes you who you are. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I went through the trauma, but honestly, like me saying cereal and stuff like that, that was moments that we shared at the time. It's where I am now, being able to kind of, lean back into that girl. Thank you, Mina. I'm proud of me too. Did you see the pat on the back? Because I was like, girl, you're doing a good job. Girl, look at you. Thank you, girl. I appreciate that. But no, I think obviously the Cancer new moon, I'm obviously going to do the reading for that when the time comes, but the Cancer new moon is happening, I think, just after the Saturn retrograde starts. So that's about to be a whole class, like a whole class for us. So I'm intrigued to see how that situation actually plays out because that's kind of what this Taurus new moon is setting us up for, basically. That's why I was called to come into the space and really unpack it for us, just so that we can put everything into context. It's like, yeah, we're doing a rewrite of stories basically during this Taurus new moon. It's like a once upon a time part two, which is interesting. So yeah, y'all. But thank you guys for sort of like stopping into the space. These are the timestamps, y'all. If someone can pop them in the chat after the facts, or nice and cute, like how y'all do. That would be super. Thank you. Astrology forecast. We had the astrology forecast initially, and then we kind of like had the rest of everything sort of come to play from there. Astrology, 18 minutes. Yeah, right. Thank you, Chaley. Beautiful. I hope you had a good. How have you guys been? Actually, I didn't actually quite catch up with you guys. I am going to sort of head off to the Mister and stuff and check in with him. But how has the Scorpio new moon been, full moon been treating you guys? Because it's been so intense for me. I'm just like, I haven't had a minute to chill. My lazy personality is not really like, the happiest, but she's dealing. Oh, I'm so beautiful. I know. I think obviously the Scorpio full moon showed up for you during like Mother's Day as well. So that was quite an interesting one. Oh guys, trust me, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, man. Yeah. Yeah, CJ. Oh, I didn't even realize that you were in the chat. Hey, CJ. It's very, very intense. Like the energy is just so much. It's so quick, so quick. It's like you have to just keep up. And if you don't keep up, it's like, oh my God. You know that scorpion energy? You know, like when the parents shouting at their kid, it's like, what? Why can't you do it? Figure it out now. You're like, I think I got it. I don't know. Maybe show me again. Sorry. It's like all this pressure. And pressure makes diamonds or burst pipes. But I'm telling you, sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, maybe I should just quit. Maybe it's too much. It's a lot. It's definitely that type of energy at the minute, y'all. And it's pretty intense. So I would say, like, really, really try your best as well, guys, to just make sure that you're taking some time to just really, really be present with yourself as well. Because trust me, like when Saturn retrograde starts up, if you're not taking your human into consideration on certain levels, your human's going to be hitting back during Saturn retrograde. Trust me, your physiology is going to be off the bloody grid. We have to get into more of a team alignment because we're both trying to execute the same things. We just have different levels that we sort of navigate at. Obviously, the consciousness is unlimited, whereas the human has its limitations, and sometimes it wants to be able to vocalize those. So yeah, that part. But yeah, I'm gonna pop these here. Those are all the actual stuff, y'all. Oh, it didn't come out. See, this is why I said you guys. See, I didn't even do it properly. The astrology forecast was at 18 minutes. The first crystal was a blue agate crystal, and that was at 33 minutes. The second crystal was a citrine crystal, and that was at 1 hour 5 minutes. The third crystal was the black obsidian crystal, and that was an hour and 43 minutes. Right? Until we got here, basically. But I really do hope that that was useful for you guys. I hope that you guys really utilize the information and really make this energy count, because God is basically this wave is going to take us into November, right? And depending on how we're able to use it, it's really going to set us up for the 2024 timelines, because like I said earlier, we're going to start manifesting into some of those timelines pretty soon, right? In the next 2 months, we're going to be starting. Thank you, Chaley. In the next 2 weeks, you see how discombobulated it is. It looks like my dyslexic mind, girl. Dang. Oh, thank you guys. It's all good, man. Thank you guys for like stopping into the space. I'm out here. I want to share what's going on in these like streets as well, because I want people to know, and I want us to be able to like really do our best as like a family. You know what I mean? We're all growing together. So that's why I come into these spaces, to just make sure I'm like, oh, BTW, God said, and then the angel said, and then this is what's going on in spirit realm. Because guys, trust me, like God is really, as much as we see like what's going on like right now in the collective, trust me, what's coming, I'm excited. And you guys should be too, okay? Like I was doing my little Bible studies the other day, and I was thinking, wow, we're almost towards like the end. Not like that, like not like a doom and gloom like Bible basher. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's going on right now is actually phasing out. It just looks a lot more prevalent because it has to look that way, so that it can give the illusion that it still exists, but it's actually phasing out. So it's definitely an interesting time to be alive, guys. But thank you guys so much for stopping into the space and hanging out with me. It's always fun to hang out with my fave peeps. Oh, I can imagine, Shaylee. I know it is hard to be excited about most stuff at the minute. To be fair, I'm like so snowed under with assignments, but I'm just excited to be able to do stuff. So I hear you. Maybe build up some of the enthusiasm as well, because I think that that's what I had to do initially. I was like, okay, let me work on some enthusiasm to actually like meet this wave, because I don't know how I feel. But yeah, thank you, beautiful. Lots of love to you, Mina. Lots of love to you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm gonna go and sign out and go and check in with a hubby, but I love you guys. I'll catch you guys on Friday. We're doing uh free readings on Friday. I'm going to be sort of like doing an announcement on Friday as well about obviously the project that we've got coming up in Uganda, and I guess sort of like speaking about some stuff around that. So yeah, I'll catch you guys on Friday. Love you guys. Until we meet again, guys. Ta-ra. Bye. Oh, love you guys. Bye.